Number one thing here is trust. And I look at trust through two ingredients to establishing trust with someone. I look at it as a way of exchanging vulnerability for validation. So in a traditional mentoring relationship, you might have your mentee come to you, one of my students might come to me and say, hey, Anthony, I'm struggling with whatever it is. I'm struggling with studying. Again, my role as a mentor is usually just not to fix the problem because they know the solutions. They can Google what the study techniques or whatever else it is, but just to listen and kind of empathize, just say that sounds tough. It sounds like we're really going through a hard time right now. And then ask them if they want my advice, maybe. Do you want my advice? Do you want my input? Do you want to know how I did this whenever I was in school? Maybe that might help you. And give them the freedom to consent to receiving that advice before I just give them unsolicited advice. In any mentor-mentee relationship, unsolicited advice is always unsolicited. Never a good idea. I would say a good half of the time my mentees come to talk to me about something, they're not looking for my advice. They're just looking to be validated in their experience. They just want somebody to say, you know what, that sucks. That really sounds tough. I'm sorry you're going through that right now. And then it's an opportunity for them to say, hey, I want your advice. I can give them that space by just asking them, would you like my input? Would you like my advice about that? Sometimes they just say, no, I'm okay. I just wanted you to know about it. And that really helps me. A lot of times there's literally nothing I can do. One time, one of my students came to my office, one of the students I mentored, she came to my office and she said, Anthony, I went to a career fair at the university and I had a really bad experience with one of the vendors, one of the employers that were at the career fair. And I said, well, if you would like to talk about it, I'm happy to listen. And she said, well, I went to them and I asked them for their business card so I could send them my CV. And I said, well, okay, that sounds like a fine thing to do. I mean, you're at a career fair. That's what you should be doing. And she said, well, yeah, but he said that the only way he would give me his business card is if I gave him my phone number with the implicit suggestion that he was asking her for a date. So he made that a kind of quid pro quo for getting her business card. Blatant misogynistic, horrible behavior on his behalf. So after hearing this from her, I empathized with her situation. And I tried to understand how horrible and invalidating that must make her feel as a professional. How someone is not interested in her credentials. They're interested in her as a romantic object. There was nothing in that setting that I could have done to help her. Absolutely nothing. I could not have fixed the problem at all. I couldn't have made it any different for her. She experienced that horrible thing and she wanted someone to listen to her. She wanted someone to hear her. I did ask her after she was finished, I said, what would you like me to do? Is there anything you can think that I could do at all? Just anything that you would like me to respond with? And she said, no. She said she just needed somebody to listen to. So I suggested that I go to my dean. And I said, hey, do you want me to talk to the dean about it? Would you be comfortable with that? And she said, well, you can talk to him about it, but I don't want you to tell him it was me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So I went to my dean and I said, hey, look, there was an anonymous student who reported this incident. I need you to know about what's going on at the career fairs that we host. It's not okay. It's not appropriate. We talked about how we can kind of mitigate these issues in the future. In that moment, there was nothing that I could have done other than listen to her and say, wow, that sounds horrible. What he did was completely inappropriate. I'm here for you if she needed in any respect. In a reverse mentorship situation, we can think of it a little bit differently because a lot of times there is that inverted relationship between the level of experience of the mentor and the mentee. So again, we're talking about maybe one of my students mentoring me. A lot of times the reverse mentor has to overcome some feelings of imposter syndrome, for example. So a lot of times my students come to me and I ask them, like, will you kind of reverse mentor me? Will you give me your advice? And they say, well, I don't have anything valuable to give you as input. And I say, no, I'm not looking for you to match me in my experience or expertise. What I'm looking for you is your own opinions and ideas. I'm asking you to draw on your life experiences and reflect on what that might mean from the decisions that I'm making. It's important in this reverse mentorship relationship that the mentee validates the life experience that the reverse mentor has so that they don't have this feeling of inadequacy or inferiority when compared to the experience of the reverse mentee. I would encourage anyone who wants to be a reverse mentor to really build the confidence confidence of the mentee up so that the mentee feels even more comfortable and more trusting to give you their objective advice, their objective opinions about the decisions that you're having to make. It's a really critical role. Otherwise, the value gets lost. Because if I have a student I'm asking them for their advice and input, but they think that they have to give me advice on an equal basis professionally, then they're not going to be able to give me very good advice because they're going to be thinking well outside of the scope of their experience. And so what I have to tell them is like, look, I'm not looking for you to solve my problem. I'm just looking at you to give me an objective viewpoint on it, a viewpoint that's especially informed by your own life experience. So making sure that there's that sense of, again, vulnerability and validation that goes into it.